Welcome. This short video will teach you how to go through the process of developing an LEP accommodations plan for your students. Again, I have pulled up the EasiLEP sign-in site, and those of you that have gone through the basic EasiLEP training will know that you just use your username and password, the same that you use for your email to log in. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. Okay, so we are logging in. And just like in the previous videos that I've made, I'm going to use a fictional student. So you will go up to your starting menu. You go to Students, click on Students. And remember, you have to choose a student before you can work and do anything in EasiLEP. So I'm going to pull one of my students. I'm going to click the LEP code 3. Those are active LEP students. I'm going to search by the last name Test. That's going to pull up all of my test students. These are not real students. We only use these students for training purposes. So I'm going to hover over this child's name, SISC Test. I'm going to click here. That brings up this child's personal information. Now what I want to do is go up to the LEP process link, do the drop down, click on LEP process. Now there are a lot of different parts of the LEP process, and so you have student information, initial identification letter, and so on. These are really the documents that you use when you document whether or not that child wants to receive or wants to waive ESL services. So that's not going to be part of this training. What I want to train you on during this short video is how to set up that LEP plan. Okay, so we get into the LEP plan component here. Now the services link, this link, I'm going to click on that, show you very quickly. This gives you the child's basic level of services. So the LEP code is 3. And the LEP subcode is B, and I'm going to pull up my EasiLEP codes here, and just a review, code 3 is currently LEP, and subcode B, those are students who are receiving ESL level 2 services. So if I go back to the LEP process, I go down to accommodations and test participation. So this is the sheet that we would use to develop that accommodations documentation, that accommodations plan. What you can do this year, and this is for the 2014-15 school year, you can either continue doing the plans via paper and pencil by hand like you've been doing years past, and you have to have that accommodation documentation for your LEP students, or you have the option this year of developing the accommodations plan by using this link. It will be saved automatically under this child's file, and if the child transfers to another school, that school will also have access to that accommodations plan. And then you can print the accommodations monitoring form that you can use for the 2015 EOG. So what I want to do today, and the purpose of this video, is really to work with you to help you understand the accommodations and test participation link. So I'm going to click here for this child. So again, at the beginning of this screen, like many other screens, you see the WAPT information and the access information. I scroll down. Now you have a list, almost like a laundry list, of the EOCs, EOGs, the writing assessment, and the CTE assessments. So you can see that this particular child is not participating, and the default on this for all tests is not participating. So we can see this child's an active LEP student, LEP code 3, LEP subcode B, which means the child is receiving moderate ESL services. So I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to choose this child is an elementary child. We're going to say this child's participating. Actually, let me double check this child's information. So let me make sure. I think this child may be in high school. So let's go back. The way I do that is I click on LEP process. I just want to check the child's grade level. There we go. Okay, student information. And it should tell me, actually, student info. And let me see, let's go back, personal information of this child. Okay, there we go, I'm sorry. So you have to go back to student info, drop down to personal, pull that child's information. This is a 9th grade child, so now I know what grade level that child is in. I'm going to go back to the accommodations and test participation link. And I'm going to only look for the 9th grade tests that child may need to participate in. So the child's in 9th grade, certainly is not going to participate in the end of grade test in reading, so not participating. Now the child will do the end of grade test, and it should be end of course test, and we're going to say in English 2. So I'm going to click here for participating with accommodations, and then end of course examination English 2. So now that I've done that, everything else on here the child's not participating in, but you can choose whatever tests that the child is participating in. And you can see there are many. So I'm going to click Add Accommodations. Now what that does is it lists in this column that this child will have accommodations for the end of course examination English 2, and depending on what you clicked on in the previous screen, you will see a list here of additional tests that child could have those accommodations with. So I'm going to click here for Add the list of accommodations. Now this gives you all the accommodations that the child can have on that particular test, and that's examination in English 2. So let's say this child needs multiple testing sessions, and let's say this child needs extended time, or testing in a separate room. We're going to do small group. So we're going to save and continue after I've clicked those 2 buttons. Now notice here, this is a column that you can use to delete. Like if you added one of these accommodations by mistake, you can click this and save it, and it will delete that accommodation. But if you want to leave the accommodation, leave those blank. This lists the accommodation, and then you can put a note here that gives some additional information about that accommodation. So you can see there's a blank here, multiple testing sessions, more frequent breaks, let's say every 15 minutes, if I need to write that in. And I can just actually put every 15 minutes the child needs a break. And if the child needs testing in a separate room, you probably don't need to put any notes down for that, but you can if you need to. But there is a place here to put notes. It doesn't mean you have to put notes, but it just means if the accommodation warrants that you add some additional information, you have some space here in which to do so. So I'm going to save that and continue. Okay, so now I've got that documented for the end of course examination English 2, and we've gone to the next screen, so we know we've saved those accommodations, and you can see how many different tests we have here. So I'm going to save it. Just want to double check that that was still listed. It's been updated, so I'm going to go back to the LEP process. Remember, you always go back to the LEP process. We're going to go down to create the LEP plan. So here I click create. It's got all of his testing information. We've already got his accommodation entered into his plan. We're going to create a draft plan so we can take a look at that. It's going to take a second to generate that. So now you can see I've created the draft plan on March the 25th today, and I can actually click on this link to take a look at that. So what we have here is the name of the student, the NCWISE number for that student, and this will actually be changed to the Power School number. Date of entry into U.S. school, if that information is is gathered here. That would be listed right now for the student. It is not. We've got his WAPT information down here, his level of services, information about how he receives these accommodations. So the bullet furthest to the left is actually the name of the test. And then below that, these are all the accommodations. You've got these accommodations tested. It reminds you down here who's responsible. The school is responsible. The classroom teacher, ESL teacher, for making sure this child receives these accommodations. And then down here on the last page, you have options. If the child doesn't receive accommodations, or if the child has IEP accommodations, you can check those boxes. But so we've generated this plan. Now I'm going to go back to the LEP process again. Remember, that's a draft. So we take a look at the draft. The draft looks okay. I go back to the plan. This time I want to create a final LEP plan, so I'm going to click here. Now it has generated that final LEP plan. So now you have a documentation of all those final plans for this child. One created back in October, one in December, and then a couple over the last couple days. And so you click here, take a look at the plan. It should look very similar to the one that we had previously. And you can print that plan if you need to. You just click this little button up here, choose your printer just like you would normally print. You can also download the plan in an Adobe Acrobat format, or you can open it as Adobe, and you would just click here. This is what it will look like, and I've opened this PDF file, and then you can save that, you can share that. Remember, this is secure information, so do not email this to anybody unless this document is password protected. So that's a good way to save that information if you need to put that information in a different location, or to give that information, or you can print that information out. So I've created that plan. I'm going to go back to the LEP process. And remember, that plan is located right here, and you can pull that up, and if this child transfers to another school, that school can also pull up this child's information. Now, something that you will be, I think, pleasantly happy about is you can go up to this link, the documents link, click here, and you have an option here of all the different documents created for this particular child. But you can see you've got general documents and then LEP documents. So these are all the LEP documents that you could print for that particular child. Or you've got this one, the general tab, you've got the accommodations review. So in North Carolina, students have an accommodations review document. You can click here, and then you can create a draft of that document that will be available for 30 days. And then you want to choose LEP, click that you want that draft document created for that test, create the draft document, click View, and there you go. So this is the review of the accommodations document that your testing coordinator and you can use to document whether or not that child uses those accommodations this year during the EOG testing. And you can see it's got the all the accommodations that would be available for that child. And it's got, this is an EOC end of course assessment, and this is just a simpler way for you to print that out, and it will make it a lot easier just to have that document at your fingertips. So this concludes the short video on how to set up an LEP testing plan for your LEP student, and also how to find and print the review of accommodations used during testing document. My name is David Sisk. I hope this video has been helpful for you, and I look forward to assisting you in the future. Have a good day. Goodbye.